where the bulk of the fighting at Cool Spring took place. I mean, the most intense combat, the most severe combat took place over there. Because essentially, you know, from this point moving down onto the other side of Parker's Island, that's the extreme right of Joseph Thoburn's line. And when that battle opened up, on the other side of the Shenandoah, there was this huge grove of oak trees. So it was out of that grove of oak trees, and if you kind of, again, just want to look at that map of the battle, it'll help you visualize this a little bit better. But it's out of that grove of oak trees that Robert Rhodes' division comes crashing into Thoburn's extreme right flank. Now, the Union forces guarding that extreme right flank was a hodgepodge unit of dismounted cavalry. Okay, it was a provisional brigade commanded by Colonel Samuel Young. There were about 900 men in that provisional brigade, consisted of about 23 different dismounted cavalry units. Well, Young's men saw Rhodes' men coming aggressively toward them. They fired no more than 1 or 2 volleys, and they retreated across to this side of the Shenandoah River. So you would have seen, if you're standing here, you would have seen, you know, Young's entire command getting off of that part of the battlefield as quickly as possible, and then of course milling about over in this area right here. Once Young's command gave way, and basically what Thoburn did was he started shuffling troops from his left down here to his right. But what causes disaster and what causes so many men to start retreating without orders, if you look at this map, okay, in the center of the Union line was a brigade commanded by Colonel Daniel Frost. All right, Daniel Frost was ordered by Thoburn to wheel to the right. So he's facing like this, wheel to the right to meet Robert Rhodes. As his men wheeled to the right, he was mortally wounded. He was shot through the bowels. He died the following day. But when Frost's command moved out, Colonel Wells's brigade, they weren't properly communicated with. They didn't understand what was going on. So these guys start to retreat. And as they start to retreat, the troops in Frost's command, seeing that their brigade commander is now mortally wounded, they take this as the cue to retreat as well. And from this side of the river, the stories of heroism, the stories of courage, sacrifice, we can tell a lot of those looking at the retreat. And one of the things that, you know, I came across researching this battle, writing about this battle, is a pretty substantial number of Union soldiers. And again, there's only 5,000 total troops engaged here. But a lot of these Union soldiers write that as they're moving across the river, it seems that as they're trying to get up the bank, that Confederates are shooting explosive bullets at them. And this sort of intrigued me a little bit, because again, I'm, you know, being a university that owns half the battlefield where the bulk of the combat doesn't occur, you know, what are the interesting stories that we can tell that sort of will enlighten the public in a way that they might not get at a traditional battlefield. And so obviously looking at this idea of explosive bullets, this sort of piqued my curiosity. So I wanted to know, and if y'all come closer, I'm going to explain some things here. I wanted to know, was there any truth, any validity to Confederate shooting explosive bullets at Union soldiers? So there are 2 different kinds of explosive shells, explosive bullets that were used during the war. Okay, one of them was known as the Gardiner explosive shell. It was made out of pewter. Okay, it had a little copper tube in the base, and that base was filled with fulminated mercury, so that when the black powder exploded, it would ignite the mercury, and when the bullet flew out, because it was pewter, it would fragment into tiny little pieces. So that might be one possibility, but they were very rarely used, certainly by 1864. The other possibility is what you see right here. Okay, this is known as a Schaller explosive bullet. All right, and I blew it up for you here, but basically it's these 3 cones. They all fit into one another. When they shoot out of the musket, they're obviously going to separate. So that might be one of the potential explosive bullets that Union soldiers are writing about being fired at them. But it might not even be an explosive bullet. Okay, the bullet you see here, this is a Confederate Gardiner bullet. All right, these things were manufactured so poorly, they had air pockets, and it was not uncommon for these, when they were fired, to present the illusion of an exploding bullet. So it might have been defective Gardiner bullets being fired, or it might have been this, the Williams cleaner bullet. You have this little part in the base, it might be coming out. So, I see this as an opportunity, and I'll pass this around, you can take a closer look. But I see this as an opportunity to kind of talk about the technology of war at this spot. Because again, you're not talking about battle, there's no one contesting ground right here where we're standing, but certainly this is a very important part of the battle to talk about what these soldiers had to endure on the retreat. Now, one of the other major things that we can discuss at this point of the battle is what becomes a great disappointment to the soldiers of Thoburn's division. Because as Thoburn's men are being cut to pieces, as men are streaming across the river, Thoburn is wanting very desperately support, he's wanting help. There's an entire Union division right here. An entire division commanded by General James Ricketts is ready and here waiting to support. Thoburn actually splashes across the river. All right, he goes to Ricketts and he says, please come across and help us. And Ricketts won't do it. And the reason that Ricketts won't do it is because he has been given strict instructions by Horatio Wright. You stay on this side of the river. The guys over there, they're not going to be able to win. If we send you over there, it's like going into a suicide mission. So this is something that the troops from Thoburn's division never, ever forgot. And, if you read post-war accounts, regimental histories, and in particular in newspapers like the National Tribune, there are a number of articles in there, and there are regular columns in the National Tribune, things like entitled "Fighting Them Over Again" and "Picket Shots," where there are veterans of Thoburn's division who are berating General Ricketts and his troops for watching them be slaughtered on the other side of the river and not doing anything to help them. So there were all these different schools of thought that emerged after the battle, and it made for an awkward scene, by the way. Because after Thoburn's men start pulling across, they're camping here, they're bivouacking in this whole area on that night of July the 18th. So they're camping right next to Ricketts' command. And so this makes for a very uncomfortable situation. Because there are some guys from Thoburn, you could imagine how aggravated they are. And they're going up to these men and they're saying, why didn't you come over and help us?
How did Pickett not end up getting killed that night?
Who?
The commander of the unit.
Thoburn?
No, not that one.
Rickett?
Yes.
Well, he's on this side of the river.
I mean,
You mean
one of his own.
by one of his own men? That's a good question. Obviously, Ricketts was not well liked at this point by the men in Thoburn's division. And as aggravated as Thoburn was, he did not want to have some kind of, internal struggle going on between the two different commands. So he told his men, essentially, yeah, all right, they didn't come and help us. We're aggravated. Whatever the reason is, we're not quite certain. But certainly he didn't encourage, to go frag Ricketts, essentially, that night. So certainly looking at, the retreat, the men bivouacking here, this is an important part of the story. But what is also important to remember is that not all of these guys are going to make it across the Shenandoah. All right, a little ways up in this direction, there's a huge, deep hole in the Shenandoah River. And if you look at that last map, okay, the one from the Cultural Landscape Report, okay, you can see right here, all right, this is the start of Parker's Island right here. And then you go about halfway up Parker's Island to Parker's Hole. And I want to walk up this way a little bit to get us closer to Parker's Hole to kind of talk about this. But this is a part of the battlefield that allows the university to not only talk about the challenges of retreat, but also kind of look at how people in the 20th century were still seeing some of the impact of this battle. But before we head up, any comments, questions?